Good morning, everyone. I'm Ian Smith. I'm the founder and managing director of United States Connect. On behalf of United States Connect and the Export Council of Australia, I'd like to welcome you to our monthly webinar. This month where our topic is US trade show success, and we're very lucky to have two very knowledgeable speakers, one direct from Michigan and the other a company case study from Melbourne. So we're looking forward to hearing from those guys this morning. Before we go to them, just a few housekeeping. For those of you that have participated previously, we take questions throughout the session, and all you need to do for that is to type the questions into the relevant section. Please feel free to shoot through questions at any time. We will hold those until the end. I will read them out and we'll get some responses from our panellists. Also, if you happen to have to leave early, there will be a copy of both the presentation and the video for you to view at a later time. And as always, please contact us after the event. We do have a number of other webinars already in the pipeline. The next one will be on US taxation. But if you've got any specific requests, please let us know. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker, and that's Christine Ellis from Facet International. Christine is a dedicated entrepreneur educated in the UK and a graduate of Languages and International Studies. She's also an honours graduate of the British Institute of Export. Her career spans 3 continents and a broad range of experience in cross-cultural marketing exhibits and events. Prior to emigrating to the US and founding Facet International Marketing, Christine worked as a corporate marketing executive for a multinational engineering group in London and Johannesburg, managing trade shows and media events throughout Europe, North America and South Africa. Christine serves on the board of the Michigan chapter of the British American Business Council and the Michigan East District Export Council, and is co-author of the book More Secrets of Successful Exhibiting. And what we've asked Christine to talk about this morning is some of her experiences as to how to get the most out of trade shows. And I might just start by saying that I've been working in and with the States for 10 years. Trade shows are key to doing business in the States. And, it's a little bit different to here in Australia. Trade shows are definitely how business is done. You can't just expect to turn up to a trade show once and be taken seriously. You need to keep going back, and buyers from some of the large retailers or some of the large groups that you'll be targeting will look for you to be there 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years in a row before they'll even consider you for a potential business partner. So without further ado, I'll pass over to Christine and we'll get her presentation started. Thanks, Christine.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome from Detroit, where it's still cold. But thank you, Ian, for the introduction. And this morning, I'm going to talk about the importance of trade shows. And I have to say that in the United States, trade shows are a really very important part of the marketing mix. And this sector continues to grow. And even when we had the economic downturn, trade shows still survived. What you're seeing here, this is a photograph of an Australian pavilion that was held at the Fancy Food Show in San Francisco, and as you can see, there was a great deal of interest. So if we move on, I think there are trade shows in almost every city in the United States, and you have to think that 50% of the largest shows in the United States take place in 3 major cities, and these are Las Vegas, Chicago, and Orlando. I don't know why that is, except that Chicago does have the largest convention center in North America. Las Vegas, there are trade shows in every hotel, and in Orlando there's a huge exhibition center, and people are attracted to go to not just the convention, but also to enjoy Vegas or Orlando and the themes. So moving on, these statistics are from the Center for Exhibition Research in North America, and they do a study every year. And as you can see, 81% of trade show attendees have some purchasing authority, which means that 4 out of 5 customers could be your next potential best customer. 46%, so almost half of all attendees, are executive level or upper management. And 92% of attendees are looking for new products. And in fact, this is the #1 reason why people attend shows in North America. The photograph you see on the side there is actually from Meat and Livestock Australia, and that show is the National Restaurant Show in Chicago. Trade shows are extremely important, and so people do travel from one side of the country to the other, and almost 80% of attendees will travel, 400 miles or more. And most of the larger shows, and there's actually about 200 major shows in North America, they have national attendance and not just regional. So if you go to a show in Chicago, you won't just get people from the Midwest, you'll get people from New York and California. Average attendees, because they're traveling, they do attend shows for up to a couple of days, and the average time they'll spend at a show is 8 hours a day. So they're serious visitors, they seriously want to attend the show. Almost half of all attendees come to a show and they look to buy, and 49% plan on buying within 12 months. So for instance, this photograph here was taken for the education show, which actually was in Vancouver, and at that show there were visitors from all over North America. So trade shows do attract a lot of attendance. But before you decide to go to a trade show in North America, you really do need to do some homework. And what I would recommend is that you look at 5 main steps before you plunge into the trade show world in North America. And they are pre-show planning, do your homework, project management, so that includes your budget. Think about pre-show marketing because it's really important. How you're going to organize things on site, and post-show follow-up, because it is quite different in North America. So if we could start with pre-show planning. Next slide. The first thing is you really need to research your target market and find the best trade show for your product or your service or your brand. You can obviously, through the web, you can go to most show organizers and they will issue the demographics. Take note of the attendee numbers, because you need to look whether it's a trade show versus a consumer show, which obviously will have higher numbers. But really what you're looking for is quality. Also look and see, are your competitors listed? Who else is listed in the trade show? Who else is attending? An important thing to do, I think, would be to ask for recommendations from your particular industry association, whichever is your market, or you can ask US Connect or the Export Council of Australia. You might also find out if there's any available export grants, because I do know that some of the states will provide that, and certainly the Export Council can advise you on that. So moving on. Perhaps Ian might, okay, I've got the next slide, sorry about that. The next thing to do really, I would say, is visit the show before you actually decide to exhibit. Walk the show, and do that because you really can't tell by reading the publicity material what the show is like. Walk the show and imagine you are your prospective buyer and decide, what is catching your attention. Is it interactive, audio, visual? Is it the demonstrations? Is it the equipment? Is it the layout? Is it the design of the booth? Is it the color scheme? There are all kinds of things which can attract you to look at a particular exhibit. You should also think about location, because all shows will have a better location. Research says that when people walk into a show, they automatically go to the right. And some people go up and down the aisles, and some people will go all over. So do think and look, what is the best location? Also look and see where your competitors are, and look and see how do they exhibit. Sometimes competitors will cluster, but sometimes that's not a good idea if you don't want your competitors to see who you're talking to. Do talk to the organizers and talk to other exhibitors and attendees and find out what people think of the show currently, because some shows will be on a trend to increase and some shows may be on the decline. And also look at the quality level of typical stands. How do people exhibit? Is the quality level good, or does it, does the show look a bit tired? You can generally get the general feeling for the show. The booth on the right there was from the Machine Tool Show. Hoffman make filter technology, and they decided, rather than go to the expense of having a very heavy equipment on the booth, that they would go and totally change their style. And they went for modern, high-tech looking with audio-visual. And they doubled their leads with no equipment. So it's quite an interesting phenomena. So you do need to think about what attracts you when you walk the floor. Pre-show planning, do set some goals. I mean, to decide why do you want to be there? And these are some examples of typical goals. You could be launching a new brand. You're testing the market for your new product. Perhaps you're launching an existing range of products. Or perhaps you're not really too sure, so perhaps you should set a goal of, well, I plan on generating so many new leads. You should not forget about existing customers if you already have them in North America, and do invite them, because that's quite important, because they want to feel that you're exhibiting at the show and you'd like to see them. Perhaps you're looking for a distributor or an agent or a sales representative. So that's another good reason that you're exhibiting. Or perhaps the show is organizing international trade delegations. Some do, and that would be a very good reason to participate. The company that you see on the right is FSP Australia, and they were launching a range of products for the mining show, and they were in the Australian pavilion at Mine Expo, and that's a show that takes place only once every 4 years. But as you can see there, they were they were displaying a range of new products for mining. So, step 2, project management. It's really important that you think about your budget, and most people that we talk to tend to only think about what's the booth going to look like, how's it going to be designed, and they think about the design and the build, and sometimes they forget about the marketing. So really, perhaps divide your budget in 2 and think about it as software and hardware. Software being the marketing, the graphics, the press coverage, invitations, staffing, social media, show events. Perhaps you can attend an event or launch an event while you're there. Your signage and the theme for your show. So these are all important things which shouldn't be forgotten about and should be in your budget. And even if you have to take away from the stand build, you know, you should perhaps do that. The hardware side is, of course, the stand design and the build. The field services, which in North America refers to electrical, material handling, rigging, labor, and of course the shipping and logistics. So these are all things to include in your budget and worth thinking about. Next slide. Pre-show marketing. The industry research confirms that exhibitors who use pre-show marketing attract up to 50% more visitors. And the way I like to explain it is, if you were organizing your daughter's wedding and you were spending all this money, then wouldn't it be sensible to send out invitations? So you can think along the same lines with the trade show, that it's really important to invite people to the show. And you can obtain lists from some of the show organizers. You can do your own research by, you know, looking who would you like to invite and your existing customers. So do think about inviting people. And a lot of people, you know, overlook that step. Benefit from the show promotions. A lot of shows will do pre-show studies and invite you to take part in new products or new exported products, new imported products, innovative. Take advantage of sending press releases to the media ahead of schedule. Use the email and social media channels to let everybody know that you are going to be at that show. And also use your industry network. Let your association know that you're going to be there. And just make sure that you are on people's list and that anybody who's going to the show knows that you're going to be there. This is really important. Next slide. Pre-show marketing. The photo that you see here is actually a stand that was built for decor at the National Housewares Show, International Housewares Show in Chicago, and this was a couple of weeks ago. And the reason I'm showing you this is to show that decor's goal was to provide a very welcoming environment, a very bright, light environment where people could do business face to face. As you see, this booth was bright and white. It was very well lit, and it was also a showcase for all their range of products. But they also had audio visual, and you could walk through the booth. So you don't want to appear like you're just in a bazaar and you put out your range of products. You really want to create an environment, and that's some of the things you need to think of on design. So I think, you know, it looked a nice booth and it attracted a lot of people. There's a word called EACs. EACs in North America are exhibitor-appointed contractors. Most shows in North America will issue you with a trade show manual, which you can obtain online. It'll be somewhat confusing, and you will be given the distinct impression that the only contractor you can use is the general contractor you're running the show. This is not true, and you can hire very experienced, reliable export contractors who are generally small to medium-sized firms who can provide you with detailed design quotes, and they'll also provide you with impeccable service and support, and this should be part of the package. If you have a good EAC on board, then they will really take care of you. And step 5 is post-show follow-up. Leads from trade shows, a bit like porridge, they're not really very nice if it's cool. You should always think of them as hot, and you should take the leads with you and don't leave them behind. We find leads very often in the information counter when we're packing up. So be sure to take the leads with you. Be sure to follow up immediately. And I think if you follow those 5 steps, then you'll really benefit from a very worthwhile show in North America. So what I'm going to do now is give you a few more tips about working in North America. And this first picture is actually taken in the 1920s, and this was one of the things that surprised me when I first came to North America, because in North America shell schemes are not automatic, and when you book space in North America, often you receive the space, which is the concrete, and they will provide you with what's called pipe and drape, which is basically plumbing pipe and curtains. And this still exists today, really. So don't be surprised that you don't have a shell scheme available. They do offer them now, but you have to pay a premium for them. So this is so you don't have a surprise. So moving on. I just wanted to speak for a few words about international pavilions. International pavilions are a consideration if you're a first-time exhibitor going into North America, and it is a good idea if your industry is providing a pavilion and you really want to test the market. It is generally more economical for the first-time exhibitor, and you can it works out to about 50% of the cost of exhibiting on your own. The other important thing is that the pavilion organizers have generally arranged for prime space on the show floor, and so you'll find that you can leverage more visibility because you're in a group and people are interested in seeing Australian exhibitors. This pavilion that you see here is organized by the Australian Automotive Aftermarket Association, and this pavilion takes place in Indianapolis for the performance racing show, but it draws huge crowds to the Australian area. So pavilions are very good value for the first-time exhibitor. So moving on, the other thing you should note about pavilions is they do support networking, and the organizers will generally be staffed by export professionals who will make introductions for you. They'll introduce you to potential partners. They may organize networking events, press conferences, and they'll do more than just giving you the space. So the one you're looking at here, this is for a Canadian pavilion where we organized all the booths in a circle, and we used the space in the center to have a large press conference and networking event, and it was very successful. So consider pavilions as being more than just the space package. So next slide. One of the most important things to think about in North America is that the major show cities such as New York, Chicago, and Las Vegas, the labor rates are very expensive, and we promote the use of modular displays because they're faster to install, than custom or bespoke displays. So you're seeing a display being built here in a system, and they do install faster, and therefore that keeps your costs down. And some cities, however, such as Orlando, are right to work, and you can set up your own stand. So you need to look at which show city are you actually going to, and which one are you going to be exhibiting in. But do think that modular exhibits can take less time, and that might be important. In North America, they operate on 110, 120 circuits in all the convention centers, but they do offer 220, 240, 480 lines. But be prepared to pay for more electrical if you're bringing a booth and you have pre-installed electrics, because they will charge you more as soon as they see transformers. Or what you can do is ask your contractor in North America to change the electrics out for you. And as for drayage, well, drayage is one of the most important things you need to know. Drayage is the cost in North America, and it's charged by the general contractors for loading and unloading exhibit freight, and it is based on weight. So this is why you see the drayage horses, because they used to pull coal and beer, which was based on weight. But it is a very serious cost. And so, for example, if you had a 6,000 pound booth and you're paying drayage rates, this could cost you in the region of $5,000 just to unload your freight. This is another reason to use modular exhibits, because on average they weigh 60% less than custom exhibits. So think along the lines of the lighter the weight, the lower the cost. And I would say that's one of the most important considerations for North America. And lastly, stay calm. Arrive early. And even if you think you only need a couple of hours, do think again, because your freight could still be in the marshalling yard, it could be in customs, or maybe your properties could be damaged. So always give a little leeway there, so you've got time. And make plans with your contractor to have the booth finished 24 hours ahead of when the show opens. Every contractor will say it's not possible, but do try and suggest this, because it will help avoid overtime. And overtime in North America starts at 4 o'clock. So finally, my last piece of wisdom is to stay calm. Work with someone who stays calm, and you'll win the respect of everyone. So I'd very much like to thank you for listening. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Lisa. And I hope that insights into trade shows in North America.
Thanks, Christine. That was fantastic, and we do have a couple of questions that have come in, so we'll save them up till the end. We will pass over now to John, and just by way of introduction, our next speaker is John Benson, who's now National Sales and Marketing Manager for Davies Craig. John has forged a very successful career in a variety of sales and marketing roles over the past 3 decades. As an avid motorsport enthusiast, John spent 6 years working for Australia's motorsport governing body CAMS, and has been a regular Formula Ford competitor at historic events. In addition, his sales and marketing track record includes 22 years in the motor truck, agricultural equipment and engine parts business, covering a wide variety of sales and marketing roles. So without further ado, I'll hand over to John, and we'll hear from him about his experience with US trade shows and some of the insights he can provide about how you can make your exhibit the most successful you can.
Thank you, Ian, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity, Ian. I can only I just endorse a lot of the points that Christine made, but I'll get the show on the road. Give you a bit of background about who we are, who Davies Craig Proprietary Limited are, and why we chose to go to the export market. We're, as you can probably all read, we're a 45-year-old Australian-owned and operated private company, and basically we're in the automotive aftermarket business, making thermatic fans and electric water pumps. We initially focused on the domestic market for a number of years, and then looked outside Australia to try and to obviously expand our build with our productions, and clearly Europe and the US offered some fairly attractive opportunities for us, given the critical mass of people that both Europe and America offer, as opposed to good old sunny Australia. So we ventured into Europe with a great deal of success. We have a number of good distributors in the UK and France, Italy, Germany, and even now in Southeast Asia, believe it or not. So we're very comfortable with what we're doing in Europe. But look, everything's a moving target. It's a work in progress, as most of these businesses are. So you just can't take your eye off the ball, and you need to look forward to what might lie ahead in relation to the export opportunities. That particular slide gives you a bit of background on thermatic fans and electric water pumps that I've already pointed out, and our new digital controller, which in actual fact we've just launched in the last 2 weeks, and we'll officially launch it at the Automotive Aftermarket Expo here in Melbourne, Australia, just after Easter, the middle of April. Talking about the US, we clearly see the US market, especially the automotive aftermarket, as a very strategic part of our business. 300 million people as opposed to 22 million. It's not rocket science. I'll keep it fairly simple, but it was fairly obvious for us that we needed to look at other horizons, and certainly the US offered a very good one for us. English-speaking nation, we're like-minded in some respects, but I'll cover a few of those things because there are some cultural things that you need to take into consideration when you venture into the market. And from our perspective, we looked at the various shows that and expos that would suit our particular needs. And Christine touched on the performance racing industry, or the PRI show, which is very much a very high-profile show in America, and also the SEMA show, which is the in simple terms, the spare parts show, which is held in Las Vegas. The SEMA show, they're all held at the end of the year, and the reason when I say the end of the year, I'm talking October, November, December, for the very reason that our business, the automotive aftermarket business, is pretty much governed by the NASCAR, which is their stock car racing in America, which competes for 42 weekends of the year. And the people that we're trying to address and trying to attract are very much involved in, most of them in motorsport, but certainly if they're not involved with motorsport, they're related to the automotive industry, so there's some connection there. So from our perspective, trying to hold, well, and of course from the US perspective, trying to hold any particular event or expo inside that time frame would be an absolute waste of time. Where do you begin? Well, from our perspective, well, apart from the well, a small amount of financial backing you might get from your various governments or institutions, but don't rely on this. You really need to take hold of really take control of exactly how you're going to attend these particular events. From our point of view, it was pretty simple. As I said, we had 2 events to address. That was PRI and SEMA. So, and we have been to those shows over the past 6 years. It is very, I don't want to put anybody off, but it's not the cheapest place in the world to go to. It's certainly not any cheaper now that the dollar, I think as of last night, was about 73 cents. Australian dollar compared to the US, whereas a couple of years ago, I think one particular show, it was $1.10 the other way. So you need to take into consideration the currency, and the budget is very, very important. In fact, we do 2 budgets. You need to look at that very, very closely. One, to attend either 1 or 2 or at least 1 international high-profile expo, and then of course you then have to look at a sales and marketing budget, what you believe you're likely to, what your expectations are in that particular market. I gather this will vary from product to commodity to commodity, but I'm sure if you do your homework in that area, then you'll have a pretty good idea as to whether you think you've got an opportunity to be in that space. As Christine highlighted, and I really wish to emphasise, before you make that decision, sure, if your budget's okay and you feel you can make, you want to devote a certain amount of export dollars to, or your budget to export dollars, because it's important that it's got to come from somewhere, so you've got to make a value judgment on going to these shows. You've then got to decide, okay, which goods are going to be are worth displaying and what products are going to be the most advantageous to that particular market. So you need to do your homework, the demographic that you're trying to attract, and how you actually present those particular products in the US market. Now, Christine's highlighted a couple of ways in which you do that. I certainly will endorse the comment with respect to taking equipment over there is not the cheapest thing in the world. So, and of course, in this modern day and age, audio-visual displays and can be very, very attractive and still offer a very useful sales tool when you are doing business in the US. If you've got something like we've got what we call a fish tank, which is basically it's literally a fish tank with an electric water pump on the bottom of it, and it actually shows visually, gives a very good visual demonstration as to how much water can be pumped through an engine, and that usually starts to generate certainly a lot of discussion around the booth. It certainly stops people when they walk past, and if you've only got a 10 by 10 booth or 3 metre by 3 metre, sorry, I'll try and keep the language, but I think you all know what I'm talking about, then you need to ensure that there is enough activity in your little space to make them stop and talk to you. Now, arrange the shipping with, if you are going to send goods over, make sure you've got some seasoned professionals to take the product over there, and then it's going to arrive on time. Christine's already talked about drayage, so I won't go into that, but you need to, again, budget for that. You also need to make absolutely certain that the company you're going to deliver it and that all the documentation with respect to where it's going to go down to the postcode or zip code are all documented on in fact on all 4 sides of the box, or the package, because you just never know where they're likely to, they just could end up anywhere, but it certainly wants to be all the tops and the sides and so on. I know this sounds crazy to be talking about these sort of things, but so often I've seen guys standing there at an empty booth that they've paid a lot of money to be at, and their goods haven't turned up. So it's important that you make sure you just have to do the pre-planning and make sure that you give yourself plenty of time for those goods to be there. Normally with most exhibits I should say, and expos, they give you reasonably good directions on where the goods have got to be sent and at what time the goods will be at their receiving dock, and then you know that. And normally, if you've got your booth, you'll have your booth number by the time you've made the decision to go. Make sure you mark all the goods with the booth number on it. Again, small things, but very, very important. So it takes any guesswork, because the other person at the other end, I keep on saying it's a little bit like winking at a girl in the dark. You know what you're doing, but she hasn't got a clue. So make sure that you cover yourself with all those particular all those little things when you decide you want to go off to a show. Chris, the other point that is absolutely important, pre-show, pre-exhibit, expo preparation, arranging meetings. I will say from our perspective, the first time you go over there, it can be a little bit daunting. You know, if you haven't travelled a lot, you arrive in a strange country. It can be you've got to find your way around, get yourself to find your hotel's not a bad start, and then find where the exhibit's being held, exhibition's being held, and just generally get a good feel. Give yourself plenty of time when you go over. Arrive 2 or 3 days early. A, for the jet lag, and 2, for the make sure you can go and check your site or your booth. Have a look at how it's going to be set up. Talk to the stand constructors or whoever's going to be putting the stand up. Make sure that everyone's on the same page, and you can basically come in the day before, set up the goods and set up the audio visual or whatever you need to set up, and just make sure that everything's ticking the night before, so when the show opens, usually bright and early when they open the doors at 9:30 or 10 o'clock in the morning, that you're all there bright and sparkling, ready to rock and roll. And because they'll stream in and they'll stream to your stand or stream past the stand, so it's your duty then to try and attract them to stop and have a chat with you. Prior to this, you've probably issued invitations, or hopefully you have if you've had that opportunity. We're very fortunate with the Automotive Aftermarket Association and their bodies in the US where we can access certain databases, and we do invite from our perspective, major warehouse distributors, who are the people we're trying to attract to sell our goods. So we issue them with invitations to come along. Try and keep them as personal. If you've got to know who the marketing guy, the decision maker within the company is, make sure you find out who that is, and you make sure you direct the invitation to him. First of all, make sure he's going to come. If he is going to come, then invite him onto the stand at a particular time. That's also important. Don't just say look forward to seeing you, because I think that they will be asked by a lot of other accounts to visit their stand, and they will basically set up appointments. They'll basically have an appointment book because their time's fairly precious. They've probably got a number of other suppliers, customers that they will have exhibiting, and you need to make a specific time. You need to try and do that in advance. I think that's a pretty important aspect. A, it's far more professional, and B, it nails them down to a specific time that they're likely to appear on your stand. And not only that, if you're on well, some of us are there on our own, but if you've got someone else on the stand, you can excuse yourself to break away and have a chat with the particular person that you've made the appointment with. Media releases are also pre-event. Media releases are also very important. Try and get those to the major, well, from our perspective, it's the major automotive outlets, but your major, I guess, print media related outlets. Find out who they are. You can look them up on the internet, and you can usually find the editor's email address or the sub-editors, or probably the best one to send. I find the best one to send it to is the advertising manager, because he's looking for a bit of your business. And he'll make sure, or certainly he'll contact it if he's proactive about what he's doing. And with a bit of luck, you'll make sure that some editorial information goes into some of their magazines. The industry, we're fortunate with, and I can only speak for our situation with the Automotive Aftermarket Association of Australia, very proactive organisation. As Christine alluded to, we've been fortunate with most of the times we've been to the shows that we've gone as a cluster group, 15 or 20 like-minded automotive aftermarket companies, and we've had our own pavilion, as Christine's pointed out. It works. We have a number of good hospitality. We do have some hospitality which we do offer, and that's the other good thing, that if you decide you want to attend, make sure that you think about inviting people back to your stand at a particular time. I know there's some certain rules about being able to serve refreshments at your booth, but if you plan it well enough, you can get permission. We find that, I guess because of our cluster group and the number of exhibitors that we are, and we've got a very good relationship with the PRI show people, that we can have a 4 o'clock or 4:30 sort of happy hour at the end of the day. We hand out invitations on the day to people that you'd like to come back and have a drink with us, and I have to say that sometimes can be far more beneficial than just having them stand around the booth. The other good thing about that is that if you miss an opportunity where some person who you invited to, you had an invitation for a meeting and they can't make it, or that something happens, it's a bit of a backup where you can say, well, look, here you go, take one of these. Love to see you at 4 o'clock or thereabouts. It doesn't hold them down to a time. I'm sure that most of them aren't absolutely their meeting book is not totally filled for the whole day. So with a bit of luck, before they go home, they can walk back to wherever they're going. They can come and have a drink with you and just generally share some good time and some social time. And sometimes you'll find that networking can be probably as beneficial, if not more beneficial, than just having them on the stand. The booth is, as far as the trade show is concerned, the booth presentation is absolutely important. It's got to be attractive. Make sure that your staff are nicely dressed, usually in a corporate shirt that's well identified, that identifies your name, because most people don't know who you are. Certainly make sure you've got business cards, even in this electronic day and age. Make sure you can hand out as business cards, in my view, especially in the electronic age, are probably far more important now than they were, because it can lead them to your website. It's also, if you've got Facebook, if you're into Facebook and Twitter, and you've got those accounts up and running, they can follow you on that as well, or they can at least link into those, check out some of your products and so on. Lead retrieval, from my experience with lead retrieval, we spent a lot of money in the first couple of years with a lead retrieval machine. Now I know things have moved on in the last 6 or 7 years. Thank God, the technology is a whole lot better. I think lead retrieval machines, well, you've got to make the decision. Frankly, we used them, and I wouldn't use them again. But once again, it depends on how many leads you think you're going to connect. But what I've found with leads is that most of the decision makers and the business people that are going to come to your stand will have a business card, and you will swap business cards. And to me, that is far more beneficial. Now I know that sounds a bit old school, but it works. If you've got a business card scanner, which most people have these days, you can scan them in, and then you can write the appropriate notes alongside them in your own laptop when you get the opportunity, or even if you just scribble a few notes on the back, so when you get the opportunity to put them into your computer for following up when you bring them home. And I can't emphasise enough, as Christine said, leaving leads at an expo is certainly not very professional. And yeah, look, I guess we've all done it from time to time. If you have 1 or 2 leads floating around, but it's not something. Now with this electronic age, there's really no reason why that should happen. Set your market objectives. Again, you might think it's going to be a fairly daunting prospect, but if you just make some bullet points about how you want to go and what you want to do at the particular show, that's also vitally important. You can have some eye-catching promotions. That's my little car that we took to the PRI show a couple of years ago, and obviously generated a bit of activity. That just happens to the number on the side, apart from being the number that James Dean used when he was racing a 550 Porsche Spider. It also happened to be the same number of an electric water pump that we had launched onto the market, and we'll be using that particular car. It'll be on display at the Australian Expo here in about 3 weeks' time. So it usually attracts a lot of attention. It's got a water pump on it that they can see. It runs and starts, and they can get a pretty good indication as to what a real-life type product can do in a life, I guess, a live situation. Again, similarly with the water, well, that's the engine, but you can see the water pump, the digital controller, which folds up under the dashboard, and the electric water pump, which is on the radiator. That's about it. As I say, it's we've just to finish off, we've had a very successful US venture. We've got a number of irons in the fire now, but I say it doesn't happen overnight. Even one of the suppliers or wood wholesale distributors that we're talking about at the moment, we've been talking to them for 12 months. It's taken them 6 months to load the part numbers up on their system. We're now talking to another company, again, from a follow-up phone call or follow-up visit I made to a particular company outside the show, which was, again, networking is very important. And this guy said, I got an email from him 3 weeks ago, remember me, I've changed companies, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to private brand your Davies Craig electric water pumps into the US aftermarket. And this company are a huge company, high profile, and they're in every WD warehouse distributor in the US. And if that comes off, then It will be, well, he's certainly making all the right noises, so I have to say, as we speak, it's looking very exciting for us. But as I say, we're 6 years down the track, and I'm very grateful for the fact that we had that opportunity to go over there, and we're now looking at increasing our market in that particular space. So thanks for the opportunity, and I'll throw it back to you, Ian, for any questions that people might have.
Thanks, John. That was fantastic. And just expanding on one of the points you made before we do go to questions, follow-up, and I see this and have seen this over the last 10 years. Australian companies and New Zealand companies think that follow-up is sending companies that have expressed interest at a trade show, you're sending them an email, and you ring them up a couple of weeks later and say, how's your follow-up going? And they say, oh, you know, we had a lot of interest at the show, but we haven't had a lot of interest when we've followed up. You know, as some of you have probably heard me say, you know, email's one thing, but you really should be ringing people until you feel uncomfortable and then ring 10 more times. That's what follow-up is. And it's really important that you follow up all of those contacts that you got at the trade show to make sure that you get the most out of it. So we'll now move to questions. We've had a few. I think a really important one, Christine, I'll throw this to you. We've talked a lot about products, but Tracy wants to know how she can display, exhibit services. So she's got a service business. How can she best display that rather than physical products?
Well, I would say to Tracy that also Facet is in the service business, and we'll actually be exhibiting in Melbourne in a few weeks' time. And one of the things we're doing is actually organising a networking event on the booth. I think in the service industry, people want to know from other people how well you're doing. And so on the booth, you might want to show examples of your services in action, you know, sort of application photographs, things along those lines, and maybe have some kind of, as John pointed out, have some kind of an attractive factor, because when people walk along the aisle, if they see something of interest, so perhaps you've got audio-visual and you've got somebody talking about what the service was that you are providing, and it might be of interest, they may stop and listen to it. So there's a number of ways that you can attract people to the booth, but certainly networking and showing how your services have been used is one of the ways.
Thanks, and I'd just add to that, Tracy, that one of the really important things when you're going to do business in the States and you're doing trade shows, particularly as a service business, is having case studies and testimonials. And not necessarily, if possible, you should have case studies and testimonials from US clients. If that's not possible, then choose brands that Americans will be aware of, and that's actually a really good way to get into the market, is to piggyback off existing business in Australia that might be with multinationals or large US corporations. So the next question, Christine, probably for you as well, are there any rough guidelines in terms of cost per square foot or square metre for budgeting purposes? And that was from Joe.
Well, the issue in North America, and one that I found out coming from Europe, is that you know, the American is so large that you have to consider that there are 6 separate regions and there's 50 states, and every trade show facility in North America has different rates. So when we're asked to provide budgets, first of all we say, well, which city are you going to? Because the costs for that city will be different. It'd be particularly different if it's a northern city and maybe it's unionized, where the rates could be much higher than, say, if you were exhibiting in Orlando, where the rates are lower. So really it depends on where you're going. So we wouldn't suggest that there's a square foot base price for the whole of North America. It could be that there's a big difference between shipping from the West Coast to the East Coast or to the Central Zone. It depends what time of the year it is. There's a lot of variables to give you that base figure. So it really depends on how large your booth is, what you want to do, where is it located, and in which convention city and hall. I know that doesn't answer the question, but you need to be aware of the variables.
Yeah, and we might take that one offline, Christine, and we'll get Joe. We'll get Joe and you connected, and you can provide a rough ballpark in that particular industry,
yes,
in that particular city, and anyone else that wants to do that. I know that you're coming down to Australia in a couple of weeks as well, so we'll open up the opportunity if people want to meet up with you as well. They can just get in contact with me, and we'll set up a meeting. John, a question for you and then for Christine probably. Tracy again has asked, there seems to be a strong expectation on discounts and giveaways at US trade shows. How do we craft an offer that is attractive to US buyers without necessarily spending a lot of money? So John, do you want to take that one first of all?
Sure. Well, it's an interesting question, a valid one. We don't find people asking for discount. Well, first of all, I should say we don't make it our business to sell from off the stand, off the booth. Look, we take samples over there, and I guess to be perfectly honest with you, if someone says they want one and they've got cash in hand, you're not going to let them out of your sight, are you? But to try and answer that in a broad sense, discounting, yes, look, you can have show specials, and we do it here in Australia when we go to various shows here, I have to admit, although we won't be doing it at the expo, but we certainly, when we go to a provisional or regional type show or expo, then yes, we do sell product, and we do offer a show special, which is usually about, well, what we call a trade price, 20 to 25% off recommended retail, that sort of thing. And you can, if that's what you want to do in the US, then that's fine. But the shows that we've been to, from my experience, apart from the odd guy who just falls in love with the electric water pump, and thank God we get a few of those, if we've got a few, I do take some over, and yes, we will market them. But thankfully now, and this is the point that I apologise I didn't mention in the presentation, was that we now have an office in California. We set up an office in California, and from that point of view, we can then ship directly out of that office, usually overnight, to that particular customer, get his name, rank and serial number, or he or her, and usually that transaction can take place in that manner. But we don't find, in general terms, that you're going to do business with them there and then. Again, as I said, we're talking to the sales and marketing people of most of these big organisations. They want to know, once you get into the nitty-gritty of talking price, that usually happens outside the expo. It's creating the environment for them to be attracted to your product is the first thing you've got to do. The next thing is, again, with the follow-up that we mentioned, following up with emails. What I found, again, from my experience, and it's no big deal for us, if we get a customer that we think's, a lot of them, what I do is I send them a sample. I'll send them a water pump sample. And let me tell you, that sitting on their desk usually keeps their mind on the job, because I find, I don't know what it is about some of the Americans, but it's amazing how many emails don't make it to their email box and end up in the trash can. So you need to be very conscious of that too. Certainly the emails and the follow-up are important. Sorry, I'm getting a bit off the subject, but I just wanted to throw that bit in.
No, that's okay, John. Christine, I'll get you to comment as well on that question, and could you also just comment, I know in my experience having product on the ground in the States is really important, so can you comment on that as well, even if it's just having a couple of pallets of product or whatever it might be?
Yes, well, if I could go back to the giveaways, I think I know that when I walk the show after we've set up booths, and I generally do, just to take a look, I'm attracted by useful gifts, you know, even if they're small items, but if they're useful and they're interesting. And there was a study done on young professionals who are walking the floor because they're looking for things which are sort of innovative and something that's interactive, you know, that works, that is a gadget of some description. And so I think anything that's engaging, anything that attracts attention, which is interesting, that's perhaps new and hasn't been seen before, because, you know, the average visitor isn't going to stop because there's free pens or there's, you know, the sort of usual giveaways, but anything unusual. And we do find from the Australian exhibitors that if it's Australian, they do attract attention. You know, that's another thing. So that, you know, that's what I would say on giveaways. Discounts, I don't see many people, not from our client base, who would advertise the fact that they are offering discounts, unless, as John says, they have a particular show special, and of course it depends on the market. But certainly the American buyer wants to know, do you have the product available in the United States? They want to know, you know, would it be readily available if they wanted a sample of something or other. And one of the ways that we do help our clients is they will often ship us materials in advance of the show, which we will hold in our warehouse. And after the show, instead of them sending them back to Australia, we'll keep their product. And so if there's anyone that they want to ship a sample to, that we can readily send out a box for them. So, you know, I would say the discount is not such an important consideration, certainly in the markets we've seen. Is that helpful?
Yeah, no, that's great, Christine, and I'll answer my own question just on the having product on the ground. What we've seen over the years is a lot of companies will sort of go to a trade show sight unseen, and they'll turn up and they've got these brand new products and it's all great. They get a heap of interest and people are walking past, but when they ask when they can get the product, you know, it might be 6 months away, it might be 6 weeks on the water away, and people just keep walking. So generally, you know, our recommendation is that people do have some product on the ground in the States, even if it is, you know, a couple of pallets or whatever it might be, so that you do have that presence, or at least have a third-party logistics warehouse that you can mention that, you know, you are setting up so that you do have that US presence, because you'd be surprised, you know, how many US companies do get the jumps dealing with international companies, still international suppliers. So we're probably just about out of time, Christine, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on the trend. You know, everything's going online. We've got a new generation coming through that do everything online. What's your impression of US trade shows, and are they going to continue to be a sort of a key business development activity for companies moving forward?
Well, you know, from attending shows and from looking at the research, definitely trade shows are still a very important factor, and they are on the increase. And most of the industry research that you look at will confirm that fact. And certainly the Center for Exhibition Industry Research recently published a study, it was actually in January 2015, about some of the reasons why young professionals find this to be an exciting future. And some of the reasons given are that they really are interested in learning. They're interested in learning about new products. They want to see them. They're interested in being engaged, in being interactive, and also some of the shows, because they're offering broadcast media opportunities for exhibitors, and they can do interactive presentations. We just did a show in the medical engineering field where we had a series of iPads available so that people could actually find out information during the show if the person they wanted to speak to was busy, and they were very, well used. So the shows are becoming more and more important and are growing. So I would say yes, the trend is to continue with trade shows in North America.
I just, as you know, Christine, I just came back from the International Houseware Show, and I think technology is having a massive impact. So, trade shows from my experience have sort of lagged a little bit in terms of some of that technology and the trade show managers taking up technology. But, we talked about leads before, and there's technology now where, you simply scan the card or the badge of a potential buyer, and not only does it go into an Excel spreadsheet, but you get an email if you require that with that contact detail listed there. So it makes following up very easy. John obviously prefers to do business cards, but if you want that sort of technology, it's there and it's live and active and makes business development so much easier. So I think we might just wrap it up there now. We're over the hour mark. So I really want to thank John and Christine for participating. It's been a fantastic session. I'm sure that they will be available after this session to answer any more questions. So please send me an email. The Export Council will send out a summary of this event with a link to the video. Please send that on to anyone else you think might be interested. And you can review that yourself at any time. The other thing I would mention is that United States Connect does have a listing of all of the US trade shows in the States. You can actually sort them by industry, so you can actually go in and look at your particular industry and see which the major trade shows are and when they're on, and read a bit of a summary. We also have a listing talking about grants of grants that are available in Australia and New Zealand. So registration to the site is free. So again, if you're not already registered, I'd encourage you to do so. And Christine's company, Facet International, is listed as one of the rated service providers. So again, you can connect with her through the site or through myself after this webinar. So thanks again, John and Christine. Christine, hope you have a good evening at your time, and John, hope you have a good morning, and thanks to everyone for participating.
Thanks, Ian.
Thank you very much.